This is a Louie T Network exclusive.
Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft Zone.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome, you are in the lab room, of course. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man, Louie T, aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2016 NFL Draft by using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out. I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. So we'll get a score for each and every single player. Add those scores up, apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks by X said team in that particular draft, which will then yield us an overall grade for their draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the up format, or the you pick format, where you simply being first to comment in the comment section of this video and future videos, stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. We'll get that team up next in the series. It's really simple. I mean, it really is simple. Don't make this any harder than it is, folks. Be first, two things in the comment section: team you want to see next and the phrase next. That team's going to be up next in the series. And because you did that, the next team up in the series is none other than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they've done a really good job of getting high quality football players in the draft over the last few years, whether it's Stephon Tuitt or you're talking about Ryan Shazier on the defensive side of football. You flip it over to the offensive side: Le'Veon Bell, L.Bell, Big Ten, Martavis Bryant. When these guys are healthy, a lot of high maintenance athletes that the Steelers have acquired over the last few years, especially Le'Veon Bell and Ryan Shazier. Those guys seem to always be in the shop needing a little bit of work done. But when they're healthy and they're on the field, these guys are among the best at their respective positions. So this is a team that has been stockpiling some elite talent. And so we'll see if they can continue that trend here in the 2016 draft of the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we'll break it down. Now, first round, 25th overall selection, Miami cornerback Artie Burns is the pick. A lot of drama surrounding that selection, and I think that 21 to 25 range was really fascinating, and I think the Redskins threw a wrench in the Steelers' plans, because the Redskins selected wide receiver Josh Doctson out of TCU at 22. I think that selection there had a trickle-down effect that saw the Cincinnati Bengals, who probably would have selected Doctson had he been on the board and available, would have allowed the Steelers to take William Jackson III, which I think was their preferred choice. But because the Redskins took Doctson, the Cincinnati Bengals then felt the need to go ahead and get William Jackson III, which then had the trickle-down effect of forcing the Steelers to do something that they probably didn't want to do, which was select Artie Burns. I'm not here to debate whether they would have done it or not. Bottom line is, this is a guy that I don't think a lot of people thought was going to be a first-round pick. Ended up being a first-round pick. Let's talk about him. 6 feet, 193 pounds, outstanding length and speed. In this day and age, at the cornerback position, I talk about it all the time. We're moving to the longer, bigger, faster cornerback to deal with these bigger, faster, stronger wide receivers. We've seen the influx of these bigger corners in the league, whether it's a Sean Smith or it's a Richard Sherman. We've seen these guys that are bigger make an impact, and it pretty much started right around Nnamdi Asomugha and how he had a huge impact making plays, and then of course the Legion of Boom and their success in this league. And so everybody's looking for those bigger, longer corners, and this is a guy that fits that bill to a T. 6 feet, long arms, 33-inch arms, 4.46 speed. This guy can make some plays on the football, has tremendous ball skills, which is the next pro, so I'll go ahead and lump that in. It's the guy that has a lot of things you can't coach, you can't teach. And I think that's something that really attracted him to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round, willing to come up and tackle. I thought to myself, I hear track guy playing football. Does he want to tackle is the next thing that comes to mind at the cornerback position. And Artie Burns said, hey man, there's no problems here. If there's a mess, I will clean it up. If I need to come up and be physical, I will come up and be physical. Saw it on tape. He put all my questions to rest. I feel good about saying Artie Burns will come up and he will tackle. Versatility. This is a guy that can play some safety for you. Saw him do that in the Pitt game. Saw him do that a couple of times where they moved him around. This guy can play corner, out as a boundary corner. He can also play in the slot. I think he's most comfortable, and I think where the Steelers probably want to put him and allow him to flourish is out as a boundary corner, and I think that's where they're going to put their focus on Artie Burns and becoming a good football player, is out as a boundary cornerback. Mental toughness is something that I think he has in spades. Went through a horrific ordeal last year. Dad is incarcerated. Mom passes away during the season last year, which I can't even fathom the pain that he must have been going through with that situation. He's got two younger siblings that he became the legal guardian of because of that situation with his mom passing away and dad being locked up. So there's a lot on his plate. Not only did he continue to play, but this guy was an integral part of that Miami Hurricanes football team. Even though his mom passed away, he was still in meetings, he was still watching film, he was still one of the guys. I can't even imagine functioning, let alone going out and being very good in a situation like that. And yet Artie Burns went out, performed at a high level, got it done. And that is just a testament to his mental toughness, something that I think really separates him from a lot of the prospects in this particular draft class. You go to special teams value, this is a guy I think you can put on all four of your special teams if need be. Talked about the speed, talked about the willingness to tackle, so those all translate over to being on special teams. You could even try this guy if you wanted to on punts and kickoffs as a return guy. Talked about the track ability so this guy can run, but I don't think that's something the Steelers are going to look into. I think they feel comfortable at just leaving him at the cornerback position and allowing him to learn there. That's where he's going to make his biggest impact, if he's going to have one with this team, is at the cornerback position. And upside, which is what I think ultimately got him drafted by the Steelers in the first round, is that they look at this guy and they say, yeah, there's some technical flaws here. There's some things he's got to work on. Yeah, he's a guy that ran track that's playing football, but we're going to reverse that and make him a football player with track ability. And I think they look at the size, the speed, the length, and the ball skills, and they say to themselves, this guy had 6 picks last year, okay? He can make plays on the football. You can't coach ball skills. You can't coach height. You can't coach length. You can't coach speed. Either you have those things or you don't. Artie Burns has every single one of those things I just mentioned. And so the Steelers look at him and say, look, he may have some technical flaws and some things he needs to work on. He needs to clean up his eye discipline. There's some things that we can help him with. But the things that we can't coach, he's got all of those things. So we feel good about molding this guy into the football player that we want him to be. So in their mind, they're saying this guy has tremendous upside and we can't wait to get our hands on him. So I think that's probably what got Artie Burns selected in the first round. You go to his cons. He's raw with technique flaws. I talked about him being a track guy, playing football. You see the eye discipline or lack thereof. I'm seeing guys run by him in zone coverage that have no business running by Artie Burns. If you're in cover 3, no one gets behind you. Deeper than the deepest is the term often used and the phrase often used for cover 3, especially when you're outside. Deeper than the deepest. Nobody gets behind you. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. And I'm seeing Artie Burns, eyes in the backfield, and allowing guys to run by him that have no business getting behind him. This guy's too fast, he's too long for these guys to be beating him. And so I see him a little slow in his back pedal and his transition from back pedal to full out sprint. So there's some things, and his back pedal looks a little high. So there's some things that he can work on. I think there's some technique issues there. We'll see if he's able to clean those things up. You go to his next con. Can he handle the burden and the pressure? And I think that is also something that I wonder about. Looking at Artie Burns and seeing how his whole situation unfolded. I read a quote from him that struck a chord with me. And he said, I got a lot of people relying on me. I just don't want to let anyone down. And I thought about that. You can look at that quote one of two ways. You can either look at it from a pessimistic approach and view or an optimistic approach. I'm normally an optimistic guy, but that one kind of struck a chord with me. And I looked at it from a glass half empty approach, because I said to myself, normally when people say things like that, they feel the pressure. they feel the burden of other people relying on them, and they feel like, I can't let them down. So you put some undue pressure on yourself sometimes to perform, and it doesn't work out. And so that's what I wonder about. And when he went to the combine, all 32 teams asked him the same thing. How is your mental state? Are you in any mental capacity to play football? Because your home situation is a wreck right now. We understand if you can't do it. Are you in a mental state to play football? And Artie Burns had to tell every single team, I'm ready to go. Put me in the game, coach. I'm ready to go. And so I wonder, is this situation, again, throw on to that he's a first round pick in Pittsburgh. We know how this league is. We know how fans are. We know how this works. You get an extra amount of pressure being a first round pick. When you don't perform as a first round pick, you're gonna hear about it. It's gonna be in the news. The media is gonna rip you to shreds. The fans are gonna tear you a new one. You're gonna know that you're struggling if you're a first round pick. And Artie Burns been a second round pick. There's still gonna be pressure on him, but not as much as a first round pick. The spotlight is never as hot as being a first round pick. And so being a first round pick, having two younger siblings rely on him in this income, having other people looking at him and relying on him, can Artie Burns live up to all of the expectations placed on him by being a first round pick and having to go out and perform? That's a lot to ask of a young man. Keep in mind, we're talking about a young man, 3 years most removed from high school. This is a guy still figuring things out, and he's got a lot on his plate. We'll see if he's able to handle this transition from collegiate athlete to now NFL star cornerback with a lot of priorities and things that he has to carry along with him. In the first round, 25th overall selection, Miami cornerback Artie Burns for me is a triple. You can't coach the things that he has. He has a lot of things that he has to work on, but I tell you this much, the upside and all of the attributes and physical characteristics that this guy has is something that I feel like the Steelers can mold him into the type of player that they need him to be in a division where we see teams go up top with some deep threats with the football, mainly A.J. Green and the Cincinnati Bengals. So it'll be interesting to see if this guy can be a quick study, get on the field, and produce for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Go to the second round, 58th overall selection. Maryland defensive back Sean Davis is the selection, 6'1", 210 pounds. Here's a height, weight, speed specimen. He looks eerily similar to Artie Burns, but talking about Artie Burns, and I just talked about how this is a league that's making that transformation at the cornerback position, especially at the cornerback position, where height is everything, length is everything, speed is everything. They're looking for these guys that have that perfect blend and combination of those things, and I think Sean Davis fits that mold to a T. You're talking about a guy that's an inch taller than Artie Burns. You're talking about a guy that is 20 pounds heavier than Artie Burns, but yet runs exactly the same speed, 4.46 in the 40 as Artie Burns. So you're talking about a physical specimen here that can pick him up and put him down. The difference to me, though, is that this guy plays with a level of physicality that you do not see from the cornerback position. And that's, I think, something that was very intriguing at Maryland when they made the switch, moving him from safety to cornerback. And he made it a seamless transition, but there was some bumps and bruises along that road. But ultimately, I thought he handled himself well at the cornerback position. Now, if you ask me, he's much more naturally fit to be a safety, and I'd like to see the Steelers move him back there. Be interesting to see what they decide to do with him. But I would love to see Sean Davis be a safety. I think that's where his fit is most natural. But he plays with a physicality that the Steelers, they have that on their team. They got some guys that will drop the hammer on you. But I don't know if they come in the same package in terms of the size and the speed that he comes with and the force that Sean Davis throws his body around with. He will tackle. I don't have to tell you that. I just told you this guy plays with the level of physicality. You don't play with the level of physicality at the cornerback or safety position and be afraid to tackle. This guy had over 300 tackles in the last 3 seasons combined. This is a guy that flies around the field and gets opposition players on the ground. He makes plays. That's the next pro. This is a guy that forced 7 fumbles 5 interceptions. So again, he's around the football, he's making plays, he's making things happen. He is impacting the game. Versatility, I talked about him making the switch from safety to corner at Maryland. I myself would love to see him go back to safety and stay there. But again, in this league that's becoming a passing league, you need versatility. You need guys that can play safety and corner. You need interchangeable parts. Sean Davis, to me, is one of those types of players. And special teams value, again, you're getting a guy that you can put on your core 4 specials and not have to worry about him. This guy can be on your punt coverage, be the gunner, be the first guy down there. I saw him do that quite a bit at Maryland, have no issues whatsoever. You go to his cons, he's raw. Again, depending on what they decide to do with him, corner, safety, the fact that he played both means he's not great at either one. So that's something that they're going to have to figure out, and they're going to have to help him develop at whatever position they decide to put him at. But I think the bigger question is, if you're going to put him at corner, here's a flaw you're going to have to help him with. He's got slow feet and a high back pedal. These are things that, again, much like I talked about with Artie Burns, you can clean these things up. These are technical issues. These aren't things that he can't fix, all right? These are things that can be cleaned up with time and repetition. So these are things that if they decide to keep him at the cornerback position, and even if he's at safety, he's still going to have to drop over the slot, play over the slot, run with some receivers and some tight ends, and he's still going to have to run and change directions out in space. So those feet and that back pedal, those are all things that need to be cleaned up. But in the second round, I felt like this was a little bit of a reach. I didn't think this was a guy that was going to necessarily be a second round pick. But I will say this, the New England Patriots, they love players like this. And they had 2 selections late in the second round, and it would not have shocked me. I actually thought that this guy was going to be a Patriot. So from that perspective, not going to beat the Steelers up for this selection. But I think there is some work here to be done. I saw this guy get roasted by Roger Lewis. I just want to see him go back to safety. That's my biggest thing, is I want to see this guy go back to safety. In the second round, 58th overall selection, Maryland defensive back Sean Davis for me is a double. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I want to see what the Steelers decide to do. I think they're leaning towards making this guy safety and allowing him to learn that position. I want to see how he makes the transition and how he handles just being a safety and the things that he's able to bring to the table and how they utilize him. Because I think there's some talent, a lot of talent here, especially at the safety position. You don't see guys that big, that size, running that fast at that position. So if they move him to safety, this might easily turn into a triple for me. But right now, it's a double. Third round, 89th overall pick, South Carolina State defensive lineman Javon Hargrave is the selection. 6'1", 309 pounds. This, my friends, is an athletic freak here, okay? Ex-B-baller. So this is a guy that, and I listened to him talk, and he said, man, I just use my point guard skills, man. I'm like a 6'1" point guard on the court. You know, when I'm on the football field, I just use those moves to help me get into the backfield. Translation, dude's an athlete, man. He's probably one of those dudes that growing up loved b-balling, was like 6'1", 190 pounds, and then he just ballooned to 300 pounds and just started beasting on the football field. So this is a guy that uses a lot, and you see that. A lot of these guys that are 2-sport athletes that play basketball, they use that and it translates to the football field, and I think you see that in Javon Hargrave's game. Explosive burst off the snap is the next pro. My goodness, I haven't seen a guy that size move that fast in quite some time. His movement skills remind me a lot of, and keep in mind, 4'9", 340 here, folks. 300 pounds, 4'9", 340, okay? There's some linebackers in this draft. A receiver that ran a 4'9" at the combine. This guy ran a 4'9" and 309 pounds. Come on, man, stop it. Seriously, stop playing with him. So this is an explosive guy. He reminds me a lot of a poor man's Aaron Donald. Now, again, Aaron Donald is 6 feet 285. So there's a vast difference in size. And Aaron Donald ran like a 4.56, like some ridiculous time, okay? The level of athleticism that Aaron Donald possesses is out of this world, okay? But Javon Hargrave, for his size, doing the things that he does, reminds me a lot of the quickness that you see from Aaron Donald. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. And that explosive burst off the snap is why this guy was so dominant at the college and collegiate level in the MEAC division. Now look, talk about this all the time. You're going to play at a lower level school. You're going to play in a lower level division. And he played Division I football. So it's not like he played D2 or NAIA or anything like that. He played Division I football, but played in the MEAC, okay? It is what it is. So, dominate. You know what my one requisite is, man. Just dominate the competition. And boy, did he ever. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But outstanding leverage is the next pro. This is a guy that at 6'1", not ideal size you're looking for, but because he's low built to the ground, he uses that leverage to get up underneath the pads of these 6'5", 6'6", interior offensive linemen. These bigger guys that usually are able to use their length to control the lineman in front of them. They can't do that with Javon Hargrave. He's getting off the snap and he's getting up and underneath their pads and he's driving these guys back into the lap of the quarterback, blowing up plays. Bull rush and swim move, next pro. Those are his 2 weapons of choice when he's trying to get to the quarterback. One's an arm over swim where he just comes off the snap and he's here. Just like that. Boom! Back in the backfield that quick. And the other is the bull rush where he just comes out of his stance. He's already low built to the ground at 6'1", and he just comes off the ball, drives up, pushes these guys back. Both of them are exceptional moves that he uses to perfection to win and get into the backfield. Elite quickness, I've already mentioned that. The quickness that this guy exudes is just out of bounds. And that's what's going to help him win at the next level. That quickness, that power that he shows, those are the things that are going to help him win the day at the next level. Gap shooter. This is a guy that can get into the backfield. He shoots gaps quickly. He disrupts plays. He plays on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. This is a guy that you do not want to face on a consistent basis because of the havoc that he can wreak on your game plan. Relentless motor. This is a guy that plays with a motor that is just ridiculous. I look at what he brings to the table and I say to myself, wow, his motor is nonstop. He's chasing guys down from behind. He's making some plays where he's stringing the play out to the sideline and going and tracking the guy down from behind. Now, with that motor comes stamina that runs out very quickly. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I don't worry about that. You want your guys going as hard as they can possibly go while they're on the field, and that's what you get out of Javon Hargrave. And he beats double teams. This is a guy that will split a double team in a heartbeat. Quickness will help you do that. Strength will help you do that. A lot of times though, quickness wins versus double teams because if they're able to get their hands on you and double team you, hard for you to move 2 guys. We've seen players do that before, but quickness will allow you to split a double team in a heartbeat, and that's what Javon Hargrave does very well, is split these double teams, get in the backfield, win against double teams. Ridiculous production last year at the Final Pro. This guy went nuts. His collegiate career 2 years ago was his big year, but his collegiate career was just ridiculous. 62.5 tackles for loss, 37 of those being sacks, which is insane. Had 16 sacks a season ago, had another 13 sacks this year. This guy has been a nuisance in the MEAC conference, and he continued to produce in 2015. You go to his cons. His size is the first thing you look at, 6'1", 309. All right, you want more length, you want more height. You want a guy that has longer arms. His arms are short. He's a stubby guy, got a bubble butt. I mean, there's not a lot there in terms of size. You look at him and you're thinking he's just a guy until you put on the tape and you watch this guy work and you say, wow. And I think that's something that a lot of teams weren't comfortable with, was his size. At 6'1", 309, short arms. Is this guy really going to be able to produce at the next level? We shall see. No counter moves. That's the next con. He's a guy that he wants to get up the field. He wants to use his athleticism, which is usually better than the guys in front of him. But what happens when these athletes and the level of these athletes, which is the next pro level of competition, what happens, or con I should say, level of competition, what happens when these athletes in front of you are just as athletic as you are? Will he still be able to win? I still like to think that he's going to win. But he's got to come up with some counter moves, okay? Maybe a spin move, okay? Maybe a hard move to the outside, back to the inside. He's got to come up with some other, maybe some long arm of the law action, okay? He's got to do some other things. When that initial bull rush doesn't work, maybe he needs a push and pull move off of that or something, okay? So the bull isn't working, jack him up, shake him a little bit, pull him, okay? Do something else to counter when your first initial rush doesn't get the job done. You don't see that from him. If he doesn't win with that quick swim off the snap, if he didn't win with that initial bull rush, he's just not winning. You go to his final con, and it's stamina, okay? This is the guy that gets tired quickly. And again, 6'1", 309, I told you this guy goes hard. When I say hard, he goes hard in the paint, okay? When this dude's on the field, he's giving you everything he's got in the gas tank, and when that tank hits E, he's got to come out of the game, or else you're not getting anything from this guy. So I watched him against Clemson, and that was my benchmark for him. I said, all right, big dog, putting you up against a big competition type team, okay, the best you're going to see, putting you up against NFL caliber players. Let me see you stake your claim. Put your flag in the ground and say, I'm here. And he was bull rushing dudes, he was jacking guys up. Now, he couldn't make a difference on his own. They got destroyed. The offense for South Carolina State couldn't produce at all. The defense was on the field way too long. Clemson ran up the score on those boys. But I'm going to tell you what, Javon Hargrave, he flashed in that game. He was in the backfield. He hit the quarterback. He was blowing up plays. It just wasn't enough. So I like this guy. I like what he brings to the table, and I think he's going to be an absolute stud for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the third round, 89th overall selection, South Carolina State defensive lineman Javon Hargrave for me is hit hard. He's hit deep. Out of it. It's a home run for the Steelers in the third round with defensive lineman Javon Hargrave. You go to the fourth round, 123rd pick overall. LSU offensive lineman Gerald Hawkins is the selection. 6'6", 305 pounds. Big, long, well-proportioned offensive tackle. This guy has a nice frame. It's proportioned evenly. He looks the part of an NFL tackle, if I may say so myself. Climbs to the second level with ease. He's good on the double team, so you go ahead and put those together because he double teams with that guard, gets off that double team, gets to the next level where he is very dominant at times. Creates movement in the run game. I saw this guy pushing dudes 4, 5 yards out of the way. When he gets to the second level, this is a dangerous man that can move other grown men against their will. You talk about him being solid in the recovery department. Here's a guy I talked about having some size on him at 6'6", got some long arms. He's able to recover. Even when he's beat to the outside, I saw him beat a couple of times with some speed on the outside, able to push those guys around the pocket, allow the quarterback to step up. So he can win even when he's beaten, and that's a sign of a guy with some recovery skills. Got 34-inch arms, so the length is definitely there for Gerald Hawkins. Versatility. He played right tackle at LSU. Remember, Lyle Collins was there holding it down at left tackle. He moves on to the NFL. He slides in and steps into that left tackle position. Seamless transition, gets the job done, and helped pave the way for Leonard Fournette. When he was at right tackle, did it again at left tackle. So this is a guy that you feel good about on either side of your offensive line. I think the Steelers are going to stick this guy in and give him a shot. No more Kelvin Beachum in Pittsburgh. So you're going to see some guys shuffling around on this offensive line. We'll see where Gerald Hawkins ends up. But I think this guy's going to have a legitimate shot of starting for the Steelers in his rookie season at some point, whether it's right out of the gates or as the season progresses. I could easily see Gerald Hawkins having an impact on this football team. Durability, started 37 out of 39 possible games. So this is a guy that you feel good about being up, active, and ready to go on just about every Sunday when it's game time. You go to his cons, needs to get stronger. This is a guy that I saw bull rushed way too often for my liking. I wanted this guy to anchor down a little bit better. He was getting pushed around, ragdolled at times. I thought that he had his damn ass handed to him in the Alabama game against Ashawn Robinson. I just saw guys jackhammering him into the backfield. Remember, Leonard Fournette struggled in that game mightily. They were trounced in Tuscaloosa by Alabama, and I thought that the offensive line struggled in that ball game. And I thought Gerald Hawkins was one of the guys that struggled in that ball game. So he needs to get stronger, especially at the point of attack. Skittish footwork. I think that's something that drives everybody nuts with Gerald Hawkins. Here's a guy that is inconsistent with his footwork, and that's part of the reason why he's getting bull rushed. It's because he's not setting his feet. They're not shoulder width apart. He's not creating a nice base and foundation for him to be able to saddle down and not allow guys to bull rush him. His feet are all over the place. They're too narrow, and he's getting pushed around. His footwork needs to be better. It's something they're going to have to clean up at the next level. Ineffective punch. When you see a guy, and again, this might all go back to footwork. If you don't have a strong base, that punch isn't going to be, it's almost like a boxer. If a boxer is off balance, unless you're great, you're not going to get a lot of power behind that punch. You need to have a nice base to throw your punch with, and he's no different. His punch is ineffective. He's hitting guys, but they're not being swayed by his little jab. They just keep coming, and so there's some things that I want to see out of Gerald Hawkins as he gets to the next level to become a more refined football player. In the 4th round, 123rd overall selection, LSU offensive lineman Gerald Hawkins for me is a double. I think the potential here is tremendous. This is a guy that I feel like has the size, has the body, has the length, has the athleticism, has everything you're looking for. He just needs to find, much like the first couple of picks, these are all athletically gifted guys. They just need fine-tuning, every single one of them, including Gerald Hawkins. So with some good coaching in it, I think that's where the Steelers are really going to show if they have a good coaching staff now. With some good coaching, every single one of these guys that I've went over thus far in this draft can be really good contributing football players for them if the coaching staff is able to turn this potential into on-the-field production and talent. You go to the 6th round, 220th overall selection. Washington linebacker Travis Feeney is the selection, 6'4", 230 pounds. I look at this guy, right off the bat I say, replacement for Terrence Garvin, who you lost, who was a special teams ace for you. You lose that kind of player on special teams. A lot of times we don't talk about special teams aces and the impact that they have on a football team, but Terrence Garvin was one of the best special teams players in the league. You lose him, you need to replace him. Here's a guy that I think can do that. 6'4", 230 pounds, tremendous length, 33-inch arms for a guy that likes to go after the quarterback. He separates from blockers, and I think that's where his length plays into his benefit, is when he gets to contact with these offensive linemen. He uses those arms, and those arms extend. He separates and disengages from that offensive lineman instead of allowing them to be sticky and drive him off the football, because he's not a big guy, 230 pounds, so hard for him to set the edge. He disengages with those long arms, and that allows him to be free to go and make a play. Outstanding athleticism, 4.5 flat. So this is a guy that can pick him up, put him down. Talking about a 6'4", 230, 4.5 athlete. Those are the kind of guys you want on your football team. This new age NFL, you need big, long, fast linebackers that can run. This is a guy that can do that. Versatility. He's a guy that wants to rush, get after the quarterback, but he can drop into coverage. I like his patience as a football player. I think a lot of times you get guys who are out of control that just want to get up the field. He's more one of these guys that's kind of staying at home, staying on that backside, and then when it's time to rush, he goes. So I like his patience. I think there's some versatility here with Travis Feeney. And you know I love when guys are ascending, and that's what he's doing. That's the next pro. He got better every year at Washington. He came onto the team as a special team standout and a guy that was a scout team MVP for them. Then he turned that into some playing time in 2012. Then that turned into an even bigger role for him. So this is a guy that finally got his opportunity, made the best of it. Haoli Kikaha moves on to the NFL, was a draft pick of the New Orleans Saints last year. He gets to play in that role, they call it the buck role at Washington, as an outside linebacker that rushes the quarterback. Remember, Haoli Kikaha had like 16 and a half sacks last year at Washington. So this is a Washington defense that can get after the quarterback. Travis Feeney steps in, first extended look at outside linebacker, goes out and gets 8 sacks. a career high for him. So he ascended every single year, got better, and I like his ascension as he is now a selection of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he's getting better each and every single year, and his last year was his best year, and you know how I feel about that, as he is now selected into the National Football League. Special teams value, I talked about that already. I don't want to continue to beat that, but this is a guy that can run down 4'5", 6'4", 230, physical presence, can run down, get down there, be the first down on special teams, make some tackles. This is a guy that you want on your football team, on a special teams unit that can get the job done. And I talked about Terrence Garvin and that departure. This is the guy that I think can come in and fill that void for you right away. You go to his cons, ex-safety, okay? He's raw. So this is a guy that hasn't played the linebacker position for very long. He's making that transition from safety to linebacker, and I don't think he can, and the next con is his frame. I don't think he can stand to gain too much more weight on his frame. This is a guy that his set point naturally is probably around 215, 220, and he's already put on another 10 pounds of muscle to bulk up to play linebacker. I don't know if he can put on much more weight. I don't think his frame is one that can stand it. And when you look at a 6'4" guy, you're thinking he should be able to get to at least 240, but everybody's body type is different, and I don't know if his 6'4" can stand to put on another 5 to 10 pounds. So I think frame is an issue, because then you start asking, can he set the edge consistently, which I don't think he can, which is the next con and the final one. Can he set the edge consistently in the run game? Not at 230 pounds he can. And I thought he did an okay job at Washington, but that's not something that you want to rely on him doing. If he gets an opportunity to hit the field defensively for the Steelers, it's going to be in a situational pass rushing opportunity, not a guy that's going to be on the field first, second, and third down. I think he's a guy you stick into some sub packages where you're looking to get after the quarterback. You're trying to put as many rushers on the field as you can. I think that's where a guy like Travis Feeney might be able to make a mark defensively. But I think first and foremost, this guy has to come in and shine on special teams. Fully expect him to do that. If healthy, he's going to make this team off of his special teams prowess. In the 6th round, 220th overall selection, Washington linebacker Travis Feeney for me is a double. Love the size, the speed, and the ability. I think this guy has some upside with him. I told you he got 8 sacks last year, the most he's had in his career. He's getting better. He's getting a more natural feel for the position of linebacker. So he's getting all of the things that you like. The light bulb is starting to come on. Again, more coaching, more fine tuning. He's got me able to be able to help you on the defensive side of football and not just be a special team standout. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, even if that's all he is in the 6th round. 7th round though, 229th overall selection, Houston wide receiver DeMarcus Ayers is the selection. 5'9", 182 pounds. This is a guy that I really had fun watching the tape on, and I talk about this every year, with every team. There's some players. There were 2 in particular, Javon Hargrave and DeMarcus Ayers, that I really just had fun watching the tape, and I really enjoyed it. And I think his selection has a little bit more merit to it now with the suspension to Big Ten Martavis Bryant. I think you feel good about Sammy Coates and him ready to step in. I was very impressed with Sammy Coates at the end of the season. I thought he put in Ullman-like work in that AFC divisional round loss to the Denver Broncos. I thought he put in some work in that ball game, and I thought he was coming on down the stretch in the season. So this is a guy that I think you feel really good about stepping in and filling the shoes of one Martavis Bryant. But that being said, I think there is an absence there, a void that is being left at wide receiver, and I think a guy like DeMarcus Ayers filled that void for you potentially. And I think that there's some things there. If everything falls correctly, he may be able to make this roster and make an impact on his team in his rookie season. 5'9", 182, dynamic playmaker. You watch the tape and you just see a guy making plays. I watched him against, I want to say it was Tulane, and the performance he put on that game was silly, man, just dumb, okay? He dominated that game in every way imaginable. Receiver, running back, punt returns, you name it. I think he scored 2 or 3 touchdowns in that game. 2 of them on punt returns, 1 as a receiver. He ran the football. God, I mean, he dominated that game. It was ridiculous. He single-handedly beat Tulane by himself in that game. Agility and ridiculous quicks. This is a dude that in space, and he doesn't need much, all right? He does not need much to make a guy miss. I mean, short area quickness, phone booth quickness, out of bounds, okay? I'm talking about breaking dudes off. I'm talking about dudes going opposite directions, guys hitting the deck. It's a mess. I mean, you get this dude a little bit of space and a little bit of wiggle room, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to wiggle his way out of a tackle to pick up some extra yardage. So he's a guy with some tremendous agility and ridiculous quicks. Outstanding hands. He's one of these dudes that pregame goes through one of these Odell Beckham Jr. like pregame rituals where he's catching everything with one hand. He's got some sick hands, and he's a guy that you see it in the game. There's a catch versus Navy over the middle of the field where he goes up one-handed, snatches the football, and this isn't one of those, let me tap the football to myself or let me stop the impact of the ball and then bring my other hand to gather it. He literally catches it, extending 5'9", keep in mind, extending his frame to its maximum capacity, climbs the ladder, catches the football, grips it with one hand, comes down, runs into his teammate, spins off of that, takes off to the house. In a game against Navy late in the season, that was a big, huge game in the American Conference, because I think Navy at the time was like 8-2. They were 9-1, had to have it to eventually go on and be the AAC champion. So again, you're talking about a guy making some big time plays, outstanding hands. He impacts the game, man. This is a guy that does a number of things, and I'm about to talk about his versatility because of how he impacts the game. This is a dude that at Houston played running back, which he came to Houston as a high school running back, ran the football quite a bit. They threw him the football a ton, especially in his junior season in 2015. This guy threw the football 3 times, and I'm gonna talk about that. He also was a punt returner. He started out as a kick returner at Houston. Last year, they primarily used him as a punt returner, was dynamic there as well. So you're talking about a guy that can impact the game in various ways. Let's talk about that versatility, as that is the next pro. This is a guy that can play punt returner, kickoff returner for you if you so choose. I think punt returner is what they're going to focus on with him right now. He can play your slot receiver, he can be a running back, and he's also a gadgety guy. He can throw the football, which he did a couple of times. Let's go over this 2015 production, which is the final pro, or one of the final pros, along with special teams value. I don't have to explain that he has special teams value when I told you already this guy is a prolific punt returner and a guy that you can also put on kickoffs if you so desire. So special teams value, something you already know. Let's get into this 2015 production because this is stupid right here. What this guy did, sneakily, he was one of the most productive wide receivers in all of college football last year. 98 catches for 1,222 yards and 6 touches, okay? That's just as a receiver. As a punt returner, 28 returns for 290 yards, so you're averaging up over 10 a return and a touchdown, okay? Running back, 25 carries, 147 yards, and a touch. So you're talking about a guy averaging well over 4 yards a carry. And then quarterback, this guy threw it a couple of times. 2 of 3 passing for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. So both of his completions went for touchdowns. This is a guy that you can hand it off to on jet sweeps. You can get him in the backfield and hand him, again, ex-running back, so he has a feel for that as well. This is a guy you can do a lot of things with. It is fun watching this guy on the football field. Let's go to his cons quickly. Quicker than fast. Here's a guy that didn't, and I think a lot of people was expecting him to really light it up. Speed-wise, hoping that he would. You watch him on tape and you know he's not that fast, okay? He's not lazy. You know when you see pure speed when you see it, okay? When guys are running away from other players and separating, you know there's an element of speed there. He wasn't running away from guys. Guys were able to catch him from behind, so I knew he wasn't that fast. I wasn't expecting 4.66 though. I wasn't expecting that. So he's quicker than fast. He's not gonna wow you, but I'm gonna tell you right now, Joshua Cribbs, who had a stellar career as a punt returner in this league, and there was a stretch there for about 3 years in Cleveland, where this guy was one of the most prolific punt returners in the league. Joshua Cribbs is not running a 4.4 anything. I don't even think he's running a 4.5 anything, okay? Joshua Cribbs was never the fastest guy in the league, but he was quick and fast, and he made things happen. I see the same thing in DeMarcus Ayers. I'm not saying he's got the same type of running style like a Joshua Cribbs, because Joshua Cribbs was a lot taller, but I think he's faster than Joshua Cribbs, and I think he might even have, I'm not saying he might, he does have a lot more quickness and wiggle than Joshua Cribbs ever had. So I think basically I said all that to say this. Don't worry about his speed. He plays faster than 4.66, and I think he's a guy that with his quickness is going to make some plays for you despite not having long distance speed. Size. Okay, 5'9", 182 limits him to the slot and the slot alone. I'm not really worried about his size. If this guy's the playmaker that I think he's going to be and that he was at Houston, I don't care about his size. That's not a big issue. You're not looking for this guy to come in and be a big threat receiver for you. You've got plenty of those on your roster right now. You're just looking for this guy to complement what you already have at the receiver position and give you some added value at special teams. I think he can do all of those things and above. And finally, the last question is exactly that. Less of a con, more of a question. Can he make enough impact plays this offseason, in camp, in the preseason, to not only make this roster, keep in mind he's a 7th round pick, to not only make this roster, but get some touches on offense and not just be a special teams guy? So that's the question I have. Can he make a big enough impact where he gets touches as a receiver or a gadget guy or whatever, and not just be a special teams return man? In the 7th round, 229th overall selection, Houston wide receiver DeMarcus Ayers for me is a triple. I don't give out 7th round triples often, man. I think that might have been my 3rd one I've ever given out. This guy is amazing, man. I really like his quickness, his ability to make guys miss out in space, and the fact that he can do so many things. His hands are so dynamic that I feel like there's a space for him on this roster. And with the void left by Big Ten this season, I think there's a chance, for him to have an impact on this Pittsburgh Steelers roster. We round out this draft in the 7th round, 246th overall selection. Temple linebacker Tyler Medicavage is a selection. 6 feet, 238 pounds. I feel like I'm looking at a mirror, and I said this with another player when I broke them down. 2 defensive players that, to me, mirrored one another. I feel the same way about him and Scooby Wright, the third. They're simply, they're literally one and the same. One 6 feet 238, which is Tyler Medicavage. The other 6 feet 239. So you're talking about guys that don't have the size that everyone's looking for at this level. But tackling machine, Scooby Wright was a tackling machine. Tyler Medicavage is a tackling machine. 493 tackles in his collegiate career. You're talking about a guy that averaged well over 100 tackles per season. And in his career, he had 100 tackles plus in every season. That is insane. Tremendous instincts. This is a guy that, again, lacking athleticism, you got to make up for it somewhere. The way he's able to make up for it is by having great instincts. Same thing I said about Scooby Wright, that ability to get into the backfield, shoot gaps. He's a gap shooter. That's the next one. His gun isn't fast. Okay, he's one of those old school Western where you pull the gun out and he's got to pop it back, pop, pop, pop. He ain't got an automatic. It ain't bang, 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 bang. It's hey, cap gun status. So he's got to have instincts. He's got to shoot gaps, and he's got to do it quickly, and he does those things. That's how you get 100 tackles every year, by having instincts, especially when the athleticism isn't there. You got to do some other things to make up the difference, and that's how he does it. High football IQ, that's another thing that's going to help you. When you can identify what's going on by formations and seeing how they're set up, watch film, see the formation, be able to diagnose the play before it happens, that's going to help you get in the backfield. Watching him against Notre Dame, you could tell he watched tape. He understood what was going on. There's a run with C.J. Prosise to the outside. He had seen it already on tape. You could tell because when they snapped the football, he was already through the line of scrimmage and in the backfield tackling C.J. Prosise for about a 4 or 5 yard loss. That's instincts. That's high football IQ. That's making plays, being a gap shooter, making plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Speaking of which, this is the guy that plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. That's the next pro. He had 40 career tackles for losses, 37 of them coming in the last 3 years. So this is a guy that plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He's around the rock. That's the next pro. 5 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, 4.5 sacks, not to mention the 100+ tackles that he had on the season. This is a guy that makes a living being around the football. And again, I said this all the time. Good things happen to those who are around the football. No difference here with Tyler Matakevich. Special teams value. If he's going to make this Steelers roster, it's going to start there. He wants a shot to get on the field defensively. He's going to have to find a way to stick on this roster special teams wise first, make an impact there. That will buy you some time to then show the coaches that I get this game, I understand how to play it. Give me a shot. I won't disappoint you. So special teams value going to have to be first and foremost. That's going to be priority number 1 for Tyler Matakevich. He's going to make this Steelers roster in 2016. You go to his cons. Height, weight, speed deficient. Said the same exact thing about Scooby Wright. 4'8", 140, 6 feet tall, 238 pounds. None of that jives with the way the NFL works today. So that's something that is definitely going to hurt him and did hurt him in this draft. His production says that he should have been drafted way earlier, but his height, weight, speed setup says that he's a 7th round to undraftable football player. Can't afford to have missteps. A couple of times watching him on tape, whether it's Penn State, Notre Dame, or one of these other games I watched him in, he takes some false steps towards the line of scrimmage, gets caught in the mud and in the mix, and he can't get there. And again, I talked about him not being able to waste steps. He's not fast enough. In the Penn State game, to give you an example, early in that ball game, matter of fact, the only touchdown Penn State scored in that game, they're down 3-0. They have a run play called, and Tyler Matakevich's first couple of steps towards the line of scrimmage, he gets engulfed in the traffic. He can't get to his gap. Running back comes out of that gap, bursts into the secondary. Nobody touches him. About a 27-yard touchdown run. Gives Penn State an early 10-0 lead. They wouldn't score again in that ball game. But again, can't have that happen if you're Tyler Matakevich. You're not good enough from an athletic standpoint to have those things happen. And finally, 2-down linebacker. We know that's taboo nowadays. You're a 2-down linebacker, that's going to hurt you. He's a guy that had 5 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. I'd love to see him get an opportunity, but again, running that speed at that size, unlikely to happen. But right now, he's been labeled a 2-down back. Like I tell all the 2-down backs that they are, or 2-down linebackers that have been labeled as 2-down linebackers, until you prove otherwise, you're a 2-down linebacker. So that's Tyler Matakevich in the 7th round, 246 overall selection. Temple linebacker Tyler Matakevich is a double. Look, the guy has everything you're looking for in terms from a mental standpoint. He gets it, he understands the game, he knows angles, he's able to go play with instincts, get to the football, whole 9 yards, okay? Forces fumbles, get guys on the ground, picks passes off. He's just got to find a way to make this roster, and it will give him an opportunity to hit the field. We'll see what happens with him, but that's the Steelers draft in a nutshell. Let's quickly go over their scoring. 1st round, Artie Burns, cornerback out of Miami, is a triple. 2nd round, Sean Davis, defensive back out of Maryland, double. 3rd round, Javon Hargrave, South Carolina State product, home run. 4th round, Gerald Hawkins, offensive lineman out of LSU, double. Travis Feeney, Washington outside linebacker, double. DeMarcus Ayers, wide receiver out of Houston, triple. And Temple linebacker Tyler Matakevich, double to round out their draft. You go to the scoreboard, you got a home run and 2 triples in there, and 4 doubles, which nets you 2 doubles bonuses. You add all of that up, it's a 22 divided by the number of picks, 7, 3.14 triple for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2016 NFL draft. That's going to do it for me in this wrap-up of the Pittsburgh Steelers 2016 NFL draft. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything National Football League. One question: who's next? There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In The Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In The Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.